Okay, so this is probably not going to be the end-all be-all of triple invis tutorials because I'm probably going to make another one, but uh, once I, practice the jump more, get FT 120s, maybe FT reds, and like learn a little bit more about the jump. But for now, I want to make this baseline tutorial so you can kind of understand what goes into this jump, what makes it so hard, and maybe even try to get it yourself. So this is triple invis. Let's watch it. I'm not going to commentate this first one. I have the input display and the webcam up so you can see what I'm doing. Now let's take a look. I'm not going to commentate this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to analyze. Okay, so that's the jump. Now we're gonna go back. We're gonna go piece by piece, and we're gonna look at every little bit of this, and we're gonna see, uh, we're gonna look at like the little things that we do to make this work. So the first things first is that one of the most important parts of starting this is you need to start good. You need a good entrance into triple invis because remember, you cannot see the walls. You can't see anything. Your only metric for for any sort of visibility is the wall to the right, which is one flat wall. Can't really miss it. Um, but this only really tells you your height. Now you can use other camera angles to look at your horizontal position, but the problem is that that adds a bit of kind of like I guess the best word for it is like obfuscuity. Like you can't really tell. Like you won't have that consistent setup anymore. It's gonna be a little iffy. So we're gonna do this with one consistent camera angle, and that's this one, which lets us gauge your height. It also lets us see the tiles in the wall because you notice it's not one consistent color. There's bricks on it, and these lines are actually what makes this jump go from completely impossible to reasonable with enough practice. So at the very beginning, we're going to start by lining up Mario with around here. You want him to be in this little region right here. He needs to be there because if he's too low, you're going to run into a lot of issues. So you want to be higher. Try to go higher than be lower. If you're above this line, like very firmly above this line, you're in good shape. So as you can see in the input display, I kind of run the stick along the gate here on the bottom, and that lines you up pretty well to hit this piece of light wall. If you hit that piece of light wall, you should be lined up for hitting the next piece. Now, when you're going to the wall, you can vary your inputs, but when you're going to the invisible wall, it's important that you're doing one constant, kind of consistent motion. Because if you vary it up too much, your setup might not work, and you want some form of consistency. So make your consistency be the way you jump to the invisible wall, because that's completely just like you cannot judge that at all. So we're going to use the visible wall. We're going to mess around with our height with that, so that way we can just get like a consistent, just like go diagonal left and hit the wall, or up diagonal, up left if you're going on the second part. So that's always going to be consistent. On this next part, we're kind of going to like hit the middle of each descending step here. And then here, once you get to that fourth step, now you're going to start rising up. But we're not just going to do a straight down left, down right motion. Instead, we're going to do what I just did there. Now that might have been a little subtle, but look at the input display. I'm purposely stalling when I'm holding down here. I am intentionally making Mario lose a little bit of height, and that's to avoid a false ledge grab. You're pretty close to one here, so it's important that you just lose that tiny bit of height, just the smallest amount of height. That's actually not the part. Yeah, here, just lose small little bits of height. And when you get here, it's going to change a little bit. Once you get to this point, now you're going to be using this blue block as reference. You want to hit that. You want to hit the lower part to the middle of the first line here. Then you want to hit firmly below the top line. And then for this next one, you want to hit around there. Not exactly the middle, but not exactly the bottom. It's important that you try to bias up. You don't want to be too low here because 9 times out of 10, if you die to the section, it's going to be because you're too low going by the visual cue I just told you. So you want to go a little higher. So just a little higher than your first bump off the blue block here. So right here, you can see this one there. That's your first one. Go higher than that. And that should line you up pretty good to hit this. And just the same way that we kind of like bias going higher on that first one, that one you also want to bias going higher. Your general visual cue is the line right here, the one that my mouse is going along the top of the darker block, but you want to go a little higher so that you avoid missing the wall entirely. And then here you want to be careful not to false ledge grab, or not false ledge grab. This part is flat, but even if you ledge grab and manage to quicksand ledge grab to the other side of it, you won't be able to make it to the wall. So it's important you avoid ledge grab. Now, if you do get a ledge grab, or if you miss the wall by being too low here, what you can do is you can hold down as much as possible and try to ledge grab the lower part and get another chance at the whole thing. You want to practice backups like this. You want to have situations so if something goes wrong, you can back it up because triple invis is not the beginning of the stage, it is near the end of the entire climb. So you want some form of backup possible. So if you fuck something up, you're not dead. Getting to that section, that's the first half. Now the second half in my opinion is more consistent and there's less variance to it, but it's also it's still very brutal. So let's take a look at it. We have a similar setup here, but instead of going above the blue line, we're going to go directly for the blue line. And that's going to set us up for the rest of the section. Go across here. Now 2 on the bottom of that line, and then here we're going to go for the middle of the block, and then we're going to rise up 2 more blocks hitting the middle again. Now here, on this one, you want to bias low. You want to be lower than normal because your risk of false ledge grabbing here is quite high. So go a little lower than normal on that one. And then here, you want to go like around the middle of that line. Now, there's going to be a big drop now. The last time we did a big drop in this was the beginning, the very beginning, there was like a big drop. Our technique for this one's going to be similar. We just stall in the air and then turn around or slide along the gate to make that big drop, but also have enough speed that we can wall kick. And your end goal for this, you want to hit the middle of this blue one, and then you want to hit the bottom of the next dark blue one. This lines you up very well. You can hit the seam here, the seam here, the seam here, and the same trick we did to lose a tiny bit of height, we're going to do again. We're going to stall a little bit by holding up more than normal, and that's going to give us the perfect height. Now, 2 final notes that I'm going to end off this video with. The first one is these pauses I'm doing. You might notice that I'm doing some pauses in certain sections of this, and this might be a little confusing if you're just looking at the jump. I think the first one's like around here. Should be. Oh, okay. I think on this particular attempt, I didn't do one on the first half, but I do one on the second half. So this pause right here. Boom, right there. Why did I pause? Well, look at the webcam here. You can see my thumb is slipping off the analog stick. Because of the nature of the setup, we're not really letting go of the analog stick very much, and depending on how you hold it, it is very likely that your hand is going to start slipping, and you're going to have this situation, which is very uncomfortable. So I would advise that you have dedicated points that you essentially have a wall kick that you're comfortable doing a pause on to get your thumb back in the middle of the stick, and that's gonna make it so you don't slide off and completely kill your chances of hitting the jump by just letting go of the stick. The reason why I was over here is because around this point, or a little earlier, around this point right here, this like blue block where we hit 3 times, that's where I tend to pause on this one. You can even see my thumbs kind of slipping off, so it's kind of surprising I didn't pause here. But yeah, that's how we do it there. And then the last point I wanted to mention is at the very end. One of your biggest threats at the very end here is going too far up and missing the wall and overshooting. If that happens, it's not the biggest deal. You can just ledge grab the lower part or just wall kick again. But it's important that you know how to avoid this, and that is, for once, we're actually going to use our horizontal position. This wall happens to line up perfectly with the right end of this block, so you can just kind of follow the. You can just track this with your eyes, and if you see where you hit it, just stop any vertical movements and go, or vertical as in vertical stick movements, and just go left and right. You can see that in the input display. Once I notice like, hey, I'm hitting that part, I stop going up and I start focusing a lot more on my horizontal motions. That's my triple invis tutorial. I might make a more updated one in the future, but I hope this is useful to at least some of you out there.